You know what? Not all RPG cliches are inherently bad. There's actually a few I don't mind seeing and I really like. If you haven't seen my list of the worst RPG cliches, then check out the link below. It's in the description, but don't go down a fork. Like that list, this list is subjective, and there are exceptions to the cliches, and I generally stick with older titles. So, without further ado, let's see my top 10 favorite RPG cliches. Number 10, the Silent Protagonist. Okay, I'm gonna catch some flack for this one because there was a lot of you out there actually wondering why this wasn't a bad cliche. Yeah, silent protagonists are logically annoying. Yes, it's really fun to have a good and interesting character to watch. Yes, silent protagonists are in way too many RPGs. However, there's actually something really charming about having a silent protagonist because obviously you can put your own identity in the blank slate. It's a role-playing game, and yeah, I like playing a role. In games like Pokemon, Chrono Trigger, and Persona 3 and 4, having a blank slate protagonist works really well because these are games you can play in your own personalized way, and it's nice because you're the one making the choices. However, in other games with a more linear story, yeah, silent protagonist isn't your best option because you, the player, don't really affect the plot. So I see both sides of the argument, but I think that this cliche should barely make this list because it gets too much flack for being something I would argue works a lot of the time. Besides, there are a lot of RPG protagonists you wish were silent. Number 9, the Dual Boss. Many games have a boss that you have to fight as just the main character against a single enemy, like Final Fantasy VII, the Suikoden games, Lunar Eternal Blue, and Luminous Arc. Not much to say here. I absolutely adore these fights because they're usually 1, tied to the story, and 2, a good challenge. I love these mono and mono clashes, especially in the Suikoden series where they're really cinematic and exciting. Or, of course, the classic final showdown from Final Fantasy VII. These battles are almost always fun and exciting, both gameplay and story-wise. This one would have landed higher on the list, but I don't really see it enough to make it a serious cliche. Number 8. You do not talk about Fight Club. Any fighting tournament or contest of skill that you hear about, you will eventually be forced to enter and win. Let's face it, when you watch an anime, the best arc is whenever the tournament actually shows up and you get to see who's the best. It's the same for an RPG. All the townsfolk talk about some major sword fighting tournament or something, and it's a really exciting feeling to think that you could be the one everybody's focusing on. You're gonna take that title. It's a good feeling. But who knows, maybe this one's just on the list because I like it when fictional characters stroke my ego. Fuck it. I like it when anyone strokes my ego. I like it when anyone strokes my anything. Number 7. Conservation of Death. In most RPGs, one major good character dies. There are a few games, Suikoden for example, where more than one major good character dies. But the point is, death should really be a more prominent part of most RPGs. These are really brutal battles that are being fought, and death should be pretty common. This is why Attack on Titan is such an effective show to me. It doesn't kid around. I love that sense of danger and realism in a game too, where characters are expendable and you can't really predict who's going to go next. There are a lot of deaths in RPGs, but I think that developers are smart to kill off party characters sometimes because it's always an emotional moment. And when an important, beloved character dies near the end of the story, they provide you with more motivation to finish the fight. I think the best example of these kinds of moments come from the Suikoden series, but many other games do these deaths really well. I like this cliche a lot because of the effect it has, but didn't really put it too high on the list because this one's not really particular to RPGs. Number 6. SelfHelp Booklet. This is a sequence right before the final boss, or sometimes elsewhere, in which every character proclaims their reason for fighting against evil and what they've learned on their journey in an excess of melodrama. This one I really should find silly, to the point where everyone pretty much says, "Hey, look how I developed as a character. Did you notice? I'm dynamic and interesting." However, I do like this cliche because it makes you feel all gooey and good about yourself. I count the tea drinking trance scene from Earthbound under this cliche as well, and I love these because it's a reflection of all you've accomplished and managed across your epic quest. As a player, you remember all the ups and downs, and now you're getting ready to move forward. You can't fail now, you've come too far and done too much. And that's why I like this cliche, that element of reflection over your vast quest. Number 5. The 7th inning stretch. At some point in the game, the main hero will receive a deadly, story-driven injury and will be put in a hospital instead of having a mage heal him. This will leave him out of commission for at least the length of 2 side quests. The female lead will also be temporarily out of commission, as she steadfastly refuses to leave the hero's side. And somewhere in the last third of the story, the hero will make a stupid decision, and the rest of the party must remind him what they all learned from being with him in order to return the hero to normal. I really don't know why I like this one so much. It's that little portion of the game where the hero is gone or like doubting themselves. And I like this because it's interesting to see other characters take the lead and see what they do without their fearless leader. Aside from that, you learn a lot about the protagonists and the other characters, as they're reminded of something about themselves or what they've taught each other, and it can help you pin down the themes of the game really well too. Probably my favorite example of this cliche is Final Fantasy VII, but Chrono Trigger and some other Final Fantasies do this pretty well too. I don't know, it's kind of a cheap trick to create a dark second act before the redemption of the finale, but this one is special to me because it's always dramatic and enjoyable. Number 4. Saving the World plot. Okay, this one is super self-explanatory. In almost every RPG, your final task is to save the world from some kind of evil. Pretty much all RPGs do this. The only exception that comes to mind is the Suikoden games and the first 2 Pokemon games. However, I think this cliche is awesome because think about it, the whole friggin' world is on your shoulders. You started up as a level 1 Steve Urkel beating up small creatures and barely getting by, but by the end of the game, you're friggin' Chuck Norris, beating the shit out of dragons with a fucking yo-yo, and the other foul creatures can't stand a chance against you. And people rely on you to save the entire world. The whole world needs to be saved. Can things get more epic than that? Not really, and that's why I love this overused cliche. But again, it's not too particular to RPGs, but it's a strong one, so it got this high on the list. Number 3. So, Andros, you reveal your true form. You will have to kill the evil villain at least twice at the end of the game. First, the villain will look like a person or some creature and be rather easy to kill. Then he will grow to about 50 times the hero's size and be much harder to kill. You see, any final boss that has one form in an RPG is disappointing to me. If you don't have another form, then you suck. I'm sorry, I don't care. Dragon Ball Z got it right. Having an enemy with multiple forms that gets stronger makes for an exciting battle. I love that moment after you beat a final boss with everything you have and then realize he's got another form. Then it's an all-out slugfest, using everything you have at your disposal to win the day. I love this cliche because it makes the final fight tougher and more epic. You really have to put everything to the test and change up your strategy a lot to succeed. And that's why this cliche is so high up on my list. It would be even higher, but there are some games who use this multiple form thing to up the difficulty too much. Or you have a boss with too many forms, which especially sucks when you lose and you have to go back to your save hours ago. Screw you too, Parasite Eve. Number 2. The Traitor. In your party, or if someone you've met across your quest, somebody's gonna screw you over. There is always one bastard who earns your trust only to kick your adorable puppy when you aren't looking. Or something like that. I love the traitor cliche because it's almost always a big twist that catches you off guard. Especially when the traitor is somebody in your party. This is somebody who you controlled, you fought with, but they were working for the forces of badness the whole time. Asshole. This would have been... I like this cliche so much. It's so cool, it creates so much drama, it's interesting, it's fun, it's mysterious. Where do their real loyalties lie? You never knew. Were there any clues you could have noticed? Couldn't you have seen this from the future? This one would have taken the #1 spot, but it's not really unique to RPGs. However, it comes up in a lot of them, and it's really cool to see one almost every time. Before we get to our #1, let's do our 2 honorable mentions. The first is the doomed utopia theorem. All seemingly ideal utopian societies are powered by some dark force, and therefore are doomed to a swift, flashy destruction. I like this one because I like to see douchey people in their utopia who are all like, check out our sweet technology, we're so much more awesome than you, and then they explode. I like explosions, they're cool. This didn't really make the list because it's not really RPG exclusive, and there's a very good chance that it makes things more predictable. The other honorable mention is the pinch hitter rule, which is whenever a member of the hero's team is killed or retired, no matter how unique or special he or she is, there's a good chance that someone will show up to replace them that has pretty much the exact same abilities and can use the same weapons with the same proficiency. This is one of the few RPG gameplay cliches that I actually like. I appreciate how the game doesn't throw a wrench in your party configuration, especially when a death occurs late in the game. Of course, Final Fantasy VII kills off your healer and doesn't really replace her, which was a dick move. It's just a nice courtesy when the game doesn't screw you over like that. This one would have made the list, but I didn't like how it kind of made things predictable. For example, if you see 2 characters with very similar abilities, there's a good chance one of them's gonna croak. Well, that's it. Let's get down to my favorite RPG cliche. #1, the hometown rule. The hero's hometown, or the town where you start, is usually destroyed, or the hero is somehow otherwise prevented from returning. This cliche is friggin' awesome. I don't care what you say. What I love about it is how it sets off the game right. Whether your village is destroyed by something you did by accident, or you get banished for a shitty reason, or something horrible happens to the people you loved, the quest starts with the tragedy, and it provides you a motivation for the rest of your quest. One of the most memorable aspects of any RPG is how it opens, and I could tell you the introduction of way more RPGs than anything that happens in the middle of the story. Your home is lost, or your once friends became assholes and kick you out. I love it when they do it in Xenogears, I love it when they do it in Secret of Mana, I love it when they do it in Tales of Symphonia. No matter what, you're basically alone in this quest to tackle the world, redeem yourself, and become strong enough to prevent any more tragedy. This cliche is absolute gold to me because it sets the tone for an epic quest. Well, that's my top 10, but what did I miss? Tell me your favorite RPG cliche in the comments below, and make sure to check out the grand list of RPG cliches, where I got a lot of these cliches. But that's all for now, thanks for watching.